Locations are a brand new mechanic coming into the Inklands. Today, Scott and I are going to discuss whether or not we think they're going to be good just for the metagame and beyond. Let's get into today's sponsor. Today's video is sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends. And honestly, more recently, I've been playing the game and it left me a bit floundered. Here's why. You can find a link in the description below, of course, but let's talk about Raid Shadow Legends. Just like you, I've heard them basically advertise everywhere and assume the game sucked. However, after playing the game for several hours, I did kind of get into it. I really enjoyed the battle system, I enjoyed all the character choices, I enjoyed different ways to play through the game, through their story and campaign, through the idea of dungeons. Coming from a background that have played many MMOs and quite a few mobiles, the game really did leave me wanting a bit more. So although I only played the game for about 10 to 15 hours to this point, I was able to progress pretty quickly and felt pretty good about myself and didn't have to spend a single dollar. Not one penny, still had fun, still played the game, still downloaded it on my phone and kind of just enjoyed the little pieces of it, and so can you. By clicking the link in the description below or scanning the QR code, you will then receive the Epic Heroes Light Swarm. And when you reach level 15, you will actually get a character for free named Juliana. I hope you check out Raid Shadow Legends. Scott, we're going to start with what I think is the most important thing to start with, which is locations. Because it's the big new mechanic in the set. We finally have all of the cards. You know, we have all the locations. We have, obviously, there was characters that came in with them. But really tonight, we're just going to be discussing the locations themselves within the inks and kind of just debating on where they are, where we're at. Shout out to our friend Clayton. He's hanging out with us tonight, too. So let's take a look. We're going to go into it. Welcome, of course, to the Inklands, guys. It's here. Be excited. I know we are. But our first set here is the Amber Locations. So, Scott, we have Pride Lands, Neverland, and Tiana's Palace. Of these three, which would you like to talk about first?
We can just go counterclockwise, start with Pride Lands. That's fine with me.
All right, cool. So tell me about Pride Lands.
I really like this card. I know it's uninkable. It's one of the few. There aren't that many locations that are uninkable. There's actually 2 Amber ones. What I like about this card is that it both has lore and it gives the characters that are there an effect, which until probably this week, it was hard to find locations that had both those. I mean, I guess Tiana's Palace does, but there weren't that many of them that did. But this one has like a very powerful universal effect by gaining 2 willpower. It's almost, in my opinion, like it's worth the move cost to gain 2 willpower to a character. Like you're basically, if you were to think about taking a character from like a 2/3 to a 2/5, like what does a 2/5 cost versus a 2/3, for example?
Right.
So you do gain an actual benefit from there. And then the real payoff is when you have a Prince or King there, you pay 1 less to play character. So it's like a lantern effect / dock type effect. So all you have to do is like move any Simba there, any like Prince there, there's
a lot of options.
Any Mufasa there. Like obviously it's very thematic. I like the fact that it has 7 willpower itself, and I like the fact that it has 1 built-in lore. Because I think what's going to happen with a lot of these like cheap locations that have lore is like you're just like right out of the gates, you're just starting to gain lore like immediately.
Right.
So
what I think is really interesting about this card, and I felt this way kind of through the spoiler season and the reveal season, was that there was a lot of characters that when they moved to a location, they got plus strength. And I've always felt like that wasn't enough. Like that's not enough reason to like play this character because most characters were kind of on par with it anyway. But like moving to get willpower is a whole different ballgame. Because generally speaking, the more willpower you are, it sets you up for interesting card mechanics in Amber, like Rapunzel's an example. And then among other things. But what it also does is that it just gives you more from your character. And then the compound fact here is like if we have a prince or we have a king, which we have plenty of options to do within Amber, then this all works out anyway, and you kind of just get the best of both worlds to make everything cost less, which I thought was really, really interesting. Especially because it's like
as long as you like discount 2 characters, you're basically even a lot of the time.
Sure.
Yeah.
But also like it's because of the way the wording is here is that if you have a prince or king here, you pay 1 less to play characters. There's no exert lantern for the 1 less for the next character. It's like no, I play all of my characters for 1 less. Like that's a big difference.
Yep.
So let's go to the easy one here. We have Neverland. It's our vanilla of the set, right? So a 1 cost inkable, 1 to move to, 4 willpower, and 1 lore. Well, now that we've seen kind of all of them, right? These vanilla locations, how do you feel about them in general? Like, do you think they're going to be good enough? Do you think only certain inks are going to utilize them? Like, where are we at with those?
I actually don't think each color has one in the end. So that's surprising.
Each one has 1 vanilla.
They have 1 that costs because like Sapphire doesn't have one. They have a vanilla, but it's not. We can do this,
right? Like we can look through all of them, boys.
It's not the same vanilla. They're not all 1.
No, but I'm saying they all have a vanilla.
Okay, yeah. They all have a vanilla. Yeah.
Each one of them has at least 1 vanilla. So yeah. Okay, go ahead. Go back to our ambers. We'll get back to these later.
It's hard to say because I'm not positive that like there's enough of a payoff to have a bunch of cheap locations in play that through Amber. I know this most of the payoffs like in steel or it's like in other colors. So I'm not really sure that this one makes the cut unless you're playing those like in addition to you need to play the cards that like gain benefit from having more locations in play because honestly, like as a 1 cost, 1 move to location, there's better ones. So like just being vanilla and gaining lore, well, again, like gaining lore right away is very powerful. In the end, in my opinion, like unless you're playing like John Silver or other ones that like just basically spot the locations and you're good to go, I don't see where this one's going to see a lot of play.
That's fair. I'm impartial. I think it's going to be useful if it's necessary. I'm just not sure that it's necessary when like Amber already has some powerful 1 cost characters to utilize, and like you said, there's not like a really like key factor Amber card specifically that wants to move the stuff. So it seems like it's probably not going to end up. What I can say is that our next card here, Tiana's Palace, 3 cost on inkable, 2 to move to, 8 willpower, which is ridiculous. With the ability of Night Out, characters can't be challenged while here, and it has 1 lore. So, Scott, this is pretty good, right?
It was better before that Ruby one was revealed. That gives your characters
sure, but they're different inks, you know.
Yeah. It was better then. I still think it's good in like aggressive Amber decks, like so your 1-drops move there, and then like they can't be challenged, etc. So I think if you can afford to take the turn off on turn 3 to play this, even if you don't move somebody there, or you move them there on turn 4, or you play it out on turn like 4 or 5 and can move somebody there immediately, I think it's good. But in general, I think there's just better options that are, I think, even inkable. So like in the end, I think this if Fang didn't exist, if the ship one didn't exist, it might be a different story, but I think it's just been outclassed at this point by those other ones.
Yeah, I think this one's hard to say because characters not being able to be challenged is pretty good. Especially if we can really pair this. Like, I do wonder if like the Amber Amethyst aggro deck likes this card enough because it helps us protect like Pinocchios and Lilos and Maleficents even further. I don't know that it's like worth that cost, but it is an additional card that has 8 willpower that's going to gain you lore, very likely, and then can make it more annoying for your opponents to like interact with those cards. But I don't know that that's going to be good enough, but that's the one place where I can see it, like where I would start with it. Because I think we both agree that sometimes you can write off any card immediately because of just, a duh. Like, one of the things that like people don't understand is like when you come out with a 204 card set, sometimes like in the competitive metagame, only 20% of those cards are even like played. So this is one of those cards that I think probably falls into like the 35% where it's like maybe this is fringe playable in something and it's just about figuring out what that is. But overall, I do agree with you. I think there are better locations that have a similar ability that just do more stuff for you.
Right.
All right, so let's talk about good.
That's where I'm coming from with it. There's just better options.
Yeah, I think you're right. Right. So let's talk about I think I skipped one. Did I skip one? I did. Oh. So let's talk about the steel locations. We'll go through these a little quicker here. So we have Nottingham, which is a steel Forbidden Mountain. So this card sucks because it's not the Forbidden Mountain.
Sure.
And then we have Maui's Place of Exile, which is a 2-cost thinkable, move 1, and then 5 willpower. And then it has the ability of isolated characters gain resist while here. And we're going to compound here and talk about the Bayou as well, which is a 1-cost inkable, 1 to move to, 3 willpower, 1 lore, and the ability of Show Me the Way, which is whenever a character quest while here, you get to draw and discard a card. So of these 3 here, I think we can both agree that the Bayou is the most playable.
Yeah, no doubt.
Right. So this is actually like really insinuating multiple things, but in general, just the card's just good, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think you're gonna play it on turn 1, but I do think like it really just smooths out your deck. It's a great combo with Sheriff of Nottingham. It just smooths out your draws. It has lore built into it. It's really good with Chernabog. Probably not unironically. It's cheap. So like you can play this. You can play this as early as like, turn 3, move your 1-drop there. Because, turn 2, move your 1-drop there. And you immediately just start questing and you immediately like get, like it turns your character into like the Huntsman type situation. And it's like, you're basically leaving yourself. And if you play a 1-drop and you move it there and you gain this extra ability that is worth like half a card, then at that point, what's your opponent going to do? Like you've already drawn and discarded a card. You're going to do it again next turn, or they have to challenge this. Like
I really like this card with the Map of Treasure Planet. In all honesty, because on like you can just curve normal 1/2 cost. And then on 3, play Map Treasure Planet, exert it, play Bayou for free, and then move both your characters to it, draw and discard. So like that's a lot you can do on turn 3 to like really sift out your hand and set up your turns 4 and 5. Definitely in steel decks that are looking for specific answers, which oftentimes they are, which is why they already have the looter effects in so many of their other characters. I think this is going to be a really good card in general for steel decks. Obviously it's not long for this world, right? Like it only has 3 willpower. You probably won't gain a lore very often from it, but as long as you can get one, honestly, 1 card draw is probably enough to make it like worth it. But I imagine that on average you'll probably get 2 draws out of it. And in the end, like if you have a slow hand, putting in play on turn 1 is still fine. You're going to pick up a lore for free. So, I don't know. I think it has a lot. Anything to say about Maui's Palace?
I don't know why it doesn't have a lore.
I really wish it had a lore.
Yeah.
Like really, really wish it had a lore. I want to just point out, we got a bunch of people in Facebook pointing out Sheriff of Nottingham, right? Like clearly Sheriff of Nottingham Bayou, very good, right?
Yep.
The one thing that came from our Discord chat was talking about the Emerald Steel Beast as well. Theoretically, you can just keep going. So it's kind of just like a built-in combo within itself, which I think is very interesting. Whether or not it's good enough is debatable, but playing a beat, in my humble opinion, anytime that you can play Beast Relentless and it not die before you get to untap, you're probably always going to be able to do insane things with it. So this card, for being 1 cost, makes you do really good things with it as long as you have your combo. Right?
Yeah.
So I like that option. I like if you can be like, all right, let me play my Beast Relentless, pass to my opponent. They have to answer my Beast. And if they don't answer my Beast, I can then drop Sheriff, drop Bayou, and just combo, which I think is pretty sweet.
Yeah, I totally built-in win condition. I mean, my big thing with this card is just it just allows you to play less copies of certain cards. A lot of silver bullets you can play. You know, it has a lot of draw synergy, etc.
Right.
I just think it's very powerful for what it does and cheap. So
that's fair.
Yeah.
All right. Tell me about the Amethyst location, Scott.
The Queen's Castle is insane.
Yeah.
I can't believe the for each part is there. If this didn't say that, I would still think it was really good. But now all of a sudden, you in the mid game, you pay for it to put it down. Not cheap, I understand. And then if you have like 2 characters in play, like on turn 6, you play this on 4 and move 2 characters there. Now your opponent basically has to be able to take out a 7-cost location on their turn, or you gain 2 lore and draw 2 cards. And like, I mean, that's pretty insane. Like as soon as you draw a card off of it, you gain value. As soon as you force them,
I mean, if
challenge,
even if this card makes it through and you gain 2 lore,
right,
it's pretty good.
Yeah. So I mean, it's just very, very good. I can't believe it only has a 1. If this had a 2 move cost, I would still think it was good. But it only, like, everything about this card, it's inkable. It has 2 lore.
I can't believe it. I cannot believe it's inkable.
for each character, like there's no downside to this as long as like you're willing to do what the card wants you to do, which is play it.
Right.
No characters there.
I will say that there is a lot of times during the next hour or so that I'm going to say I cannot believe this card is inkable.
Sure.
And this is just one of them.
That's fair.
I agree. One of them. I do want to shout out real quick. Just so I think there's some confusion with the Queen's Castle and Jafar, who we're going to talk about. I promise you, we're going to talk about Jafar because we would be ridiculous not to. This doesn't actually work because you do ready before the Queen's Castle trigger happens. So your Jafar is actually already ready at the start of the turn, so you don't get to draw cards from him. Just so kind of clear that up a little bit.
Yeah.
All right. So we talked about Broom's Castle a couple weeks ago, or the Sorcerer's Tower, which is basically the Broom's Castle in its own way. Now that we have,
there was a new broom today,
right? So now that we have like kind of all the brooms, where are we with the Sorcerer's Tower?
There's a ton of brooms, right? There's
so many brooms, right? Like I don't know how many there were. There was like 4 or 5 of them. There was a lot of brooms.
I think there's 4 amethyst brooms in the set, if I remember correctly.
There's at least 3. So I think you're right. I think today was the 4th one, which by the way, today was my favorite. The big broom, he's so cool. He's so husky. He's got his like magic cauldrons and he's just like beefing himself up.
Yeah.
The little brooms in the picture are like, oh my God. Like, I think it's hilarious. I love that artwork.
So, and that one's inkable, right? The one today's inkable, right?
So 5 brooms total, and then 1 from steel, 4 from amethyst. So there's only 3 brooms in this.
3 in this set. Okay. So I already like the 2 middle brooms at this location, or the 2 that were revealed before.
So the
one today, I think is the what? The one is Rush.
So the one with Rush.
The one is like the mini Elsa that like keeps exerted
down.
Oh yeah. Which are like expensive, but that's why you have Mickey to like make them cheaper.
Yeah, Mickey makes them cheaper. They also move to the location for free.
Right. So I like this location. It basically gives all your characters 1 lore. Even like without brooms, it would be like worth it a lot of the time just to gain 1 lore.
Yeah,
but the fact that they move there for free is like insane.
I like that it gives all your characters lore. It's probably too good if it has lore itself.
Yeah.
So you kind of just have to pay for the lore by moving characters, but the added bonus of probably 3 of the brooms are very playable. Like total of the 5 that we have. And maybe the big broom is okay. Like I don't know, maybe he's okay. I don't know. I think he's missing something, to be honest, but who knows?
The 6-cost one or the one today?
The one today. The 6-cost one's very good. He's good. The other one was good. Today's broom just gets like +2 strength while he's there, right? Like while he's at a location. So nothing like crazy about him. He only has 1 lore. They're all inkable though. I think the steel one's terrible. Like in all honesty, when we first started talking about the Sorcerer's Tower like potential deck, we were probably like, oh yeah, we got to play Amethyst Steel. I don't even think that's true anymore. Like, because the Steel Broom doesn't give you anything, so I'd rather just pair it somewhere else.
I thought it had resist 1 built in. It doesn't even have that. It only gives it.
No, it does not. It does not have that.
Yeah.
So the Forbidden Mountain's the best location in the set. Period. I don't want to hear anyone say there's nothing, right? There's no debate. All right, I'm just kidding, guys. It's cool though. It's cool to look at. So we have the Emerald Locations. What?
That Broom's a 1/5. That guy's good.
Yeah, he's a 1/5 that gets +2 strength.
Yeah, that
for
guy's
3,
good.
Right?
Yeah, he's good.
He's fine. He's fine.
He'll be 2 lore.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
All right. So we have Deville Manor, 1 cost thinkable, move 1, 4 willpower, 1 lore, no ability. We got Fang, which we've been talking about for a little while now, 4 inkable, 2 move, 6 willpower, 2 lore, and then surrounded by water, which characters gain a ward and evasive while here. And then we have Cusco's Palace, which is the newest one of all of these, which is the 3 cost inkable, 3 to move to, 7 willpower, a lore, and then City Walls, which is whenever a character is challenged and banished while here, banish the challenging character. So it's just Cusco on a stick.
But doesn't have a terrible stat line, doesn't 5 uninkable.
Doesn't have a terrible stat line, isn't 5 unlinkable, but does cost like 1 million to move to. So before we discuss whether or not this is good, what I think is interesting, similar to the Pride Lands, is what the cost of ink in terms of ink is for an ability.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's really interesting, is that they're saying that every card in the game is worth having this ability if it were to cost 3 more.
If it was to cost more than that, though, because you have to pay to
play
the card too. So
right, but I'm saying, like, if every card in the game from this point forward read, all my 1-drops are 4-drops with this ability, and all my 2-drops are 5-drops, all my 3-drops, like something like that. Like that's what that ability is worth, which I think is interesting.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think it's cost more, but I agree. I know what you're saying. Yeah,
sure. But what do you think? Do you think this card's good?
I think it's fine. I think it's not as bad as people are making it out to be. But I think there will be situations where you can have your characters basically, like, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. Again, having 7 willpower means it's difficult to take out in one even in one turn, let alone like one challenge.
Sure.
So if you have to take this out first, chances are that whatever characters you move there, I mean, they're probably gonna have 2 or 3 lore. They're probably gonna be large, like
right.
They're gonna be like very like they're gonna be cheap, efficient questers. 2 lore for 2, 2 lore for 1, like etc. So it's like
Flame Riders, your curse guys.
Yeah. So again, like, I hate Cheshire Cat because he costs 3 and has 0 strength. I hate Cusco because he costs 5, is uninkable, and only has 2 strength. So, like, he can be taken out by things that are much cheaper. But all of a sudden, if you put this on like a 1-drop that has 2 lore or something like that, like, they really can't. There's no way to efficiently challenge that character. Now, can maybe take the big problem is that, like, you can't rely on this card, because anytime you play against somebody that's playing steel, like, this card just has to be inked. Which is why it's good that it's inked, because you can't really afford to move a character there.
Listen, Emerald fans should be excited that this card's inkable for sure.
Yeah. So I don't think it's as bad as people are making it out to be, but this is a card where I think you definitely, like, have to see it in play to understand what its real effect is. I think it's good in aggro decks as like a mid game, like, damned if you do, damned if you don't. The fact that it has 1 wall is not 1 wall. 1 lore is good. I was reading City Walls, is really good. But honestly, like, to me, of these two, like, Fang almost, it's not the same effect. Like, don't get me wrong, but, like, it basically makes it difficult for your characters to be challenged, and I'd rather have the 2 lore built into Fang and the cheaper move cost.
Sure.
So.
I personally think Cusco's Palace is poo-poo. So we'll have to see if that remains true. I just think it costs too much. I think moving there is not worth the problem. I think you're better off just playing another character rather than moving a card here. So
yeah,
I'm not a fan. Fang, I think Fang's pretty good. I think the 2 lore for 4 is great. 6 willpower is good, kind of a good stat. 2 move is okay to gain those abilities. But I definitely think they're like two completely different cards in two completely different decks. I don't think any aggro deck is going to play both of these, and I don't think any mid-range deck is going to play both of these.
No.
So we'll see. I think Cusco's Palace, maybe a singleton, maybe a 2 of in certain things to try, but I have a feeling that card's just not going to be good enough.
Very fair.
All right. What about our Sapphire location, Scott?
Continuity, I'm a big fan.
Okay.
I'm sure I'm pronouncing it wrong yet again, but
Montanui.
I'm sure. I'm sure I pronounced it wrong.
You add like an N to it, which is fine. I mean, I mess up all the words all the time, and I get totally plastered for it. So it's totally fine.
I'm still a really big fan of Montanui.
Okay.
Because you gain immediate value. It has lore. You play it, you move a character there immediately. You purposely, I mean, it has huge synergy with the legendary Grandma Tala. Yep. Unsurprisingly,
pretty good.
You basically get an advantage like right away by using it. Like I don't paying 3 to play it and 1 to move a character there is basically the same cost that you're paying for a lot of your ramp anyway.
Yep.
So the fact that this stays in play and allows you to do it again, yes,
and get lore,
right? Yeah, and like you're basically like just losing a character that you probably is already outclassed on the board as it is. So you're basically just turning them into like a walking like damage action and gaining ink out of it. So there's nothing that I dislike about this card whatsoever.
No, card's good.
It's very playable. I mean, I'm not surprised. Like, I guess this was revealed probably like 2 weeks ago or something like that. And I'm not surprised.
That, it feels like a while ago.
Sapphire hasn't gotten a better one. I'm not surprised.
I don't know. Like McDuck's Manor has 9 willpower. Like that's a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, it has 2 lore also. Like I think the McDuck Manor is actually like sneaky playable.
Yeah.
Like just 9 willpower is so much. It'll be a matter of if it's at all worth it for the Sapphire decks to like need this card. But I really do enjoy the fact that it has 2 lore for 9 willpower. That's a ton. And Bell's House, I'm sure, has some type of playability, like niche playability within item decks if they need it. But I mean, it has 1. It costs 1. It has 6 willpower. It's pretty good. Like those stats are definitely above curve for everything else, right?
It just gets outclassed by the other item reduction cards that are within the own set. That's my issue. Like, I'd rather play the hat
even at 1 cost.
Yeah, because the hat only costs 2 and exerts immediately to reduce 1 by 1.
The hat's uninkable though, right?
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, I'm just saying. Okay, so, maybe it's not good enough then.
Even the two cost Scrooge, I like.
Yeah, no, he's very good. Yeah.
It's like the Dock Lantern. This is like the 3rd piece of that. Like,
yeah.
And I think I don't know how many items you actually need to reduce their cost to make this worth it. I would assume like 2, 3 in the end, probably. And I don't know that you're going to be able to do that. So
I mean, it's the same thing though. This is similar to the other one where this is just like there is no tap effect here. It's all of your items cost 1 less. So I don't know. I think the problem with it is that you really can't turn it on until turn 3. Since you can't turn it on until turn 3, it's not like I can just be like it's not. If this was a move 1, then like turn 1 you can play a guy, turn 2 you can play Bell's House, move a guy to it, and then play Popsicles on top of that. Like for free. But waiting till turn 3 to play Popsicles feels pretty bad. Not really getting like a cheaper Fishbone Quill would be beneficial as well. So I think maybe that's the problem here. Is the 2 move might make the card just a little worse than it had to be.
Yeah, I mean, you're basically hoping to like play a Popsicle, draw into another one, play another one, like whatever. Like, there's not a lot of cards that like chain themselves like that.
There's enough 1 cost items. It's a matter of Popsicles being the clear best one, and like what other ones are even worth me getting into play for free in a way.
Yeah.
Okay, so these cards are good.
Yeah, I think they're all good, honestly.
I think they all are. I think this is the one for sure. I think this is the one that has like the 3 most playables. So Agrabah, 3-cost inkable, 1 move, 5 willpower, 2 lore. So 3-cost inkable with 2 lore and 5 willpower. It's pretty good. Jolly Roger is unbelievable. 1-cost thinkable, 2 to move to, 5 willpower. Characters gain rush while here, and then all hands on deck is your pirate characters may move here for free. We've been looking for pirate payoff. Here it is, but like this is good outside of pirates, and this also goes back to the design thing of paying 2 more for a character to gain rush is like pretty surreal. It's really good. And then we have RLS Legacy, which is a 4-cost uninkable, 3 to move to, 8 willpower, 2 lore. The first ability is characters gain evasive while here, and then the second ability is if you have a character here, you pay 2 less to move a character of yours here. So if you have a character here, you pay 2 less to move a character of yours here. Why that reads weird, right? Like I'm not crazy. Shouldn't it just say
basically
like
means it basically means you have to move a character there first,
right?
Again.
Yeah, it just that reads really weird. I'm not a fan of that.
Agreed.
All right, so why don't we just start with RLS Legacy? How do you feel about that card?
I mean, you need Jim Hawkins to play it, but if you are playing Jim Hawkins, you're playing this card, and then it's a very good 2-card combo.
Yeah, I mean, you get what?
7
resources for free.
Yeah.
And your guy gets to be evasive.
And then you can move all your other characters there probably in the same turn.
It seems okay.
Yeah. And it has 2 lore. So
seems okay.
Yeah. And he's inkable even if this card isn't. So
yeah.
So if there's a location deck based around Jim Hawkins, this will be there in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean all 3 of these are played in that deck probably.
I don't know if Jolly Roger, but the other 2 probably.
I mean, giving him rush seems good.
Yeah, it's fine.
Like he just comes in. I mean, like obviously it's not the best thing ever, but it is still 3 free resources. And your character gets rush.
Yeah, I mean, if you play it afterwards, he still can move there. So
right. Well, not as good, but yeah.
Not on Jolly Roger, but on the other ones.
Yeah. And then Agrabah's just 2 lore on the 5 willpower for 3 inkable. I don't know. Seems pretty good.
It's just a poster boy for like if locations are just a good tempo play, then Agrabah is really good. And I've heard that like it's just an annoyance. And like the fact that it has 5 willpower means it can't be taken out by Fox, etc. It just requires effort to go into it. So
right. All right. So before we get into part 2 here, right? Early predictions on locations. Now that we've seen the broad scope, we've seen them all, we've seen the characters interact with them from where we were 2 months ago, where we had 1 Forbidden Mountain and didn't even really know all the rules just yet. Where are we now? Do we think that locations are going to make a huge impact?
I think as the meta goes on, yes. I think in the beginning they won't because people just won't understand how powerful they really are. I think people will just look at them like, if I jump through a bunch of hoops, I get this universal effect, and not really understanding that like it's like I can only compare it to like abilities in other games. It's like all those effects that like you pay throughout the game as opposed to all at once. Like don't look at it like you have to pay the cost all at once. Like look at it like I pay as the game goes on and I make my characters better, or I make this better, or I make that better. I'm trying to remember what it's almost like an enchantment in Magic that has a cost to use.
Right.
Or an artifact that has a cost to use.
Right.
So it's like you might not be able to use it right away, but even the ones that gain lore, you kind of are using them right away. But like it makes all your other stuff better if you pay a cost later. And I think that's really where it's going to come in. Where
I think a lot of people are looking at, I need to do everything in the same turn.
Right.
And because of that, it makes it look a lot more difficult.
Yep.
Whereas what it's really doing is, the first thing it's doing is presenting another obstacle for your opponent to make a decision.
Yep.
And anyone that's paying attention, the more times that you force your opponent into making a decision, the more times that they have a chance to mess up. So like these cards really do a great job of that. And even in a world where we talk about the Queen's Castle having 7 willpower for 4, that card in some decks might literally be designed as a bait for your opponent to run into. You're like, yeah, I just want to play a 4-cost fog. And what fog is basically like, I'm not going to take any, my opponent's not going to gain any lore next turn because he's going to spend his whole turn and all of his resources dealing with my 7 willpower location so I don't draw cards. So in terms of thinking like that, you're like, oh, like if that's the play, then that's one step closer to your next removal or your next big card. I know like that deck, especially Amethyst decks, looking for maybe to be combo decks now, maybe just getting to like an Elsa to slow things down. If we're still talking about Ruby Amethyst, maybe this card is just literally a time walk and saying, go ahead, deal with this. So I just get one turn closer to be prepared and things like that. So I think it's really interesting. I really like the grand scope. I really like some of the characters that we're going to be talking about here in a second that really work with them. So I'm pretty excited. Thank you guys so much for watching today. Do not forget that in the description below is a link to the Raid Shadow Legends, or hit up the QR code that you're seeing on screen now. Thank you guys so much for enjoying this. I hope you did enjoy the breakdown of locations. Let us know in the comments how you feel about them and what type of impact they're going to be on your deck building early on and into the Inklands. We'll catch you guys in the next video.